Hey everyone, what's happening? That question was rhetorical, please don't answer it. If you remind me what's going on in the world right now, I will cry and then scream. This is of course my YouTube channel where I do videos that are sort of a crossover between comedy and social science topics. We're still figuring out how that works, but we're getting there. I graduated 1 year ago with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, and that makes me the smartest person in the world. Most of the time I try to find some topic from the internet or current events and then make jokes about it and then analyze it using social theory. Sometimes I just clown on those things, and sometimes I just do social science-y, analysis-y stuff. This video is going to be one of the latter. The most popular video that I've made so far on this channel is one where I talk about the sociological imagination and apply it to the coronavirus pandemic, and obviously a lot has happened in the world since I made that video, so I figured I would make sort of a companion or update to that video. So if you watch my videos on the regular, first of all, thank you. Second of all, just so you know what to expect, this isn't really going to be a comedy slanted video and is going to be more heavy on analysis and information, so you can sort of think of this one as more of an opinion column or a think piece, or potentially me helping you out with your sociology homework, or one of those sociology tutorial videos, but it's more fun because I say fuck sometimes. Also, if you're watching this video as a way to study for an assignment or a test or something that you have coming up, that's awesome. I'm gonna put a link in the description to the textbook that I used to compile information for this video. It's actually free and open to the public, so that's awesome. But also just have a quick skim through the description first, because if anyone sends me any corrections in the comments, I'm going to put those in the description. Just want to make sure that you're getting accurate information. One last note before we dive in, I've been uploading less frequently as of late. Things have just gotten busy for me with work, and I'm also going to be moving soon, so I've got a lot on my plate right now. So I've switched from uploading once a week to once every 2 weeks, just so that I have more time to put into these videos and make sure that they're as good as they can possibly be. Hope that's cool. So this week I want to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about Émile Durkheim and his models of mechanical and organic solidarity. We're going to talk about the difference between functionalism and conflict theory. We're going to talk about Talcott Parsons and how it all applies to the variety of reactions to the Black Lives Matter protests. So first I'm going to explain in detail those theories that I just mentioned, and then we're going to apply it to some of the current events that we're seeing in the news right now, and this intro has officially gotten too long, so let's get at her. So one of the most popular theorists in classical sociology is Émile Durkheim. You basically can't get past an intro to sociology class without talking about this guy. He wrote a lot about what happens when society changes in response to technological advancement. He's also known for writing about social factors of suicide, and that's really interesting stuff, but I don't have time to get into that today. Durkheim was a French theorist. He was born in 1858 and died in 1917, meaning that he came of age at a time when the world was still grappling with the changes of the Industrial Revolution. He saw a world that changed drastically from the time he was born to the time that he was an adult working professional. The Industrial Revolution basically meant that factories were becoming more advanced and more popular, and factory labor was becoming a driving force of the economy. People started moving en masse into cities from the countryside because there was work to be found in the factories in urban settings, and this changed everything about the way of life people were accustomed to at the time. Durkheim was basically concerned with the ways that the advancement of industry was affecting people's relationship to society and the divides that it could cause within the population. He defined two different systems of social solidarity, which he called mechanical and organic solidarity. He was interested in how different kinds of societies upheld societal norms and kept their systems functioning. Mechanical solidarity was the system of agrarian, rural, pre-industrial traditionalists. These were people who mostly lived outside the city and worked on farms or in small-town businesses. Organic solidarity was the system of people who adapted to the Industrial Revolution and mostly moved to cities to work in factories and adopted a modern worldview. Side note, I think these names are kind of backwards, to be honest with you. Organic solidarity should be the name of the people who live in the country and work on farms and grow things, and mechanical solidarity should be the name of people who work in cities with machines, but I didn't make the rules. You gotta take it up with this fool. So one of the defining features of mechanical solidarity, according to Durkheim, is that it works because the people share a strong collective conscience. They have shared morals, values, symbols, and beliefs. People in systems of mechanical solidarity probably know most of the people in their community, and they're not very different from each other. They probably all share a race, religion, and ethnicity. They're what we call homogenous. There are also harsh punishments for breaking norms within these groups. These modes of punishment are called retributive justice because they're meant to get retribution on the offending individual for whatever they did. These societies are extremely traditional, and they're called mechanical because they rely on these shared systems that require everything to be done the same way, year after year, generation after generation, over and over again, in a constant fashion. It must be done this way because this is the way it has always been done. Now, on the other side of the coin, the key feature of organic solidarity in Durkheim's view is that it works because everyone depends on each other. If you were a factory worker, for example, you rely on the grocer to get you your food because you don't hunt and grow your own food the way that they did out in the countryside. If you're the grocer, you rely on the factory worker to come in and buy your wares and also to work in the factory to make the things that keep the economy afloat and potentially even the tools that you use in your everyday work. The academics and writers and politicians and artists and lawyers depend on all these people for the same reasons, and everyone in these cities basically contributes in some way that allows the system to stay afloat. Since the nature of factory work meant more specialization of skills, people start to have less in common with one another even if they work in a similar line of work. They're also more diverse than systems of mechanical solidarity. You might have people of different religions, ethnicities, etc. in these populations, and that's okay because as long as we're all contributing to the normal functioning of the economy, everyone is more or less happy. Now I say more diverse, but that doesn't mean that late 1800s France was this equitable utopia. Just that there was some diversity of ethnicity and religion. You could have a Protestant church on the same street as a Catholic church, or maybe even a spicy synagogue. It's called organic since people, companies, and organizations all work as distinct parts that work together to uphold the whole. Sort of like how different systems within the body will work together to uphold the survival of an organism. And since it is the economy that upholds the norms in these societies, if you break those norms, you're probably without a job and a way to feed yourself. So the punishment systems in these societies were called restitutive, which means you have to restore things to the way that they were before you committed the offending act. That's where you get into things like civil law, where you might have to pay someone damages for harming them so that we can all get back to contributing to our beautiful society organism. So Durkheim described these two different systems of society, right? And you can sort of see how, if things are in fact the way that he described them, these two systems could function separately. Well, in the world Durkheim was alive in, Europe, just after the Industrial Revolution, those two societies started to come together, and it started to become a problem. Traditionalists started moving into the city, modernist cities started expanding outward, and the two started to clash. And as a result, people became confused. They didn't know exactly what type of world they were living in. Some were telling you to embrace tradition and insist upon your ethnic supremacy. Some were telling you to embrace modernism and become more permissive. In Durkheim's view, these two systems could not coexist because they were more or less antithetical, and when they clashed, they created anomie in the confused individuals who were stuck in the lurch. Anomie is the feeling of being disconnected from society as an individual. You don't know what your culture is or what the acceptable norms are because you have influences coming in from incompatible systems. And that's going to make you insecure as to what is normal and how the world should be and what your place is in it. So now that we understand the distinctions between mechanical and organic solidarity, let's get into some critiques of Durkheim's theories. Durkheim's theories are from what we call a functionalist perspective. They're all about how societal systems function. You may notice that when I was describing those systems, I used phrases like, according to Durkheim, this society worked because blah blah blah. His theories generally describe a system that works nicely when all is well. And in that last example, anomie is only present because of a malfunction caused by a clash of incompatible systems. So according to functionalists like Durkheim, shit just works more or less outside of drastic exemptions. It doesn't really address the dysfunction of a societal system. For example, Durkheim thought the organic solidarity system worked because everyone contributed to the economy. But then you might ask, what about people who can't contribute to the economy? What if you're disabled, for example, in such a way that you can't contribute to the economy in capitalistic terms? You can't work in a factory, you can't create goods, you can't create wealth for the owner of the factory, you don't have a job. If you couldn't hold down a job, you likely became homeless, and back in the 1800s, vagrancy was still a crime in a lot of the developed world. So you're just jailing people for not being able to hold down a job in a certain sector when they could be contributing to the economy in other ways that they're more well suited for. That's a sign of an overtly dysfunctional society, which is unnecessarily wasteful and cruel. And that's just one example of how late 1800s Europe was dysfunctional. There are more examples, believe it or not, probably too many for one video. Durkheim's theories were also really only designed with his country's economic system in mind. The things that he said about the mechanical and the organic society in France more or less apply to places like Germany, UK, USA, Canada, but they don't always apply to other cultures and economic systems that aren't industrial or capitalist. Durkheim's theories also inspired other theorists after he died who took the functionalist ball and ran with it. Talcott Parsons is one example. He was born in 1902, and as a structural functionalist, his writings were basically concerned with explaining how all aspects of 20th century Western society worked to serve a functioning system. For example, the model of the nuclear family. Parsons rationalized that the nuclear family is a microcosm of society and it functions as a complementary system. You have two parents, a man and a woman, and the man is the breadwinner. He goes to work and makes money and makes important decisions outside the home and has a career, and the woman stays at home and looks after the house and nurtures the kids. And that's it. And women shouldn't try to have careers and men shouldn't try to nurture their families because that won't work according to Parsons. He saw those roles as innate and genetic and they can't be learned or modified. This is what we call biological determinism. So in the structural functionalist view, the nuclear family was the model that maximized efficiency of capitalist labor and therefore was the best system for everyone. So strict enforcement of gender roles and the oppression of women and queer and trans people inherent therein were all part of a functioning society according to Parsons. The 1950s are a delight. Turns out out the world is just wonderful if you pretend everyone is exactly like you and ignore all the oppression that's happening to everyone else. Remember, if it doesn't affect you personally, it doesn't matter. That was a bit of a tangent, but I hope you at least understand now a little bit more about functionalist theory and some of its criticisms. So now I want to move on to another theoretical model that sort of acts as a companion and a counter to functionalist theory. So we're going to talk about conflict theory now. Just as a quick contrast, I want to talk about conflict theory and what makes it different from functionalist theory. And I'm going to be talking about Karl Marx just as an easily accessible example of a conflict theorist. Marx's main works, the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, came out around the time of the end of the Industrial Revolution as well. Marx's theories looked into the exploitation of the working class by the capital-owning class. He saw how the owners of factories were able to manipulate and exploit the people working for them by taking all the profit from the sale of products that they had all made together. And he basically said if the capital class keeps exploiting the working class like that, eventually they're going to get sick of it and revolt. That's like the gist of what he was talking about in a few sentences. Now, since then, Marx's name and theories have become demonized and politicized for a number of different reasons. Basically, Western capitalists spend a lot of money to make sure that we all associate Marx's thought with totalitarianism. That's a topic for another video, but that's really not what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about being a dictatorship or totalitarianism. He was talking about the exploitation of workers. Marx's theories of exploitation and alienation of labor are what we call a conflict theory. The functionalist theories we talked about before were all about how society functions. These are the bonds that keep society in place, etc. They're all built on the premise that society works. Conflict theories take the opposite approach. They basically posit that society is inherently dysfunctional and seek to explain how and why. Marx had a different interpretation of late 19th century Europe than Durkheim did. He sees the economic systems in place and goes, hold up, that's fucked up. We're valuing labor over people's lives, and that's not going to work for very long. Not only are we being inefficient and cruel, we also have a system that's destined to fail if it keeps going on like this. Okay, so now we know Durkheim's systems of mechanical and organic solidarity, we know what functionalism is, and we know how it's different from conflict theory. And at this point, Jake says, what does this have to do with the absolute hellscape that I'm witnessing on the news in this year of our Lord 2020? Great question, let's talk about it. So Durkheim's theories on the two systems of solidarity basically describe how the pre-industrialist traditionalists keep their society together and how the industrialist modernists keep their society together and how they do that in different ways. Great! Now, as I mentioned before, Durkheim was alive at a time of a rapid technological shift that changed the way the French economy worked and therefore the way of life of the people of France. He was born in 1858 and died in 1917. I was born in 1996 and will die in 2079. I, along with everyone else in my generation, also came of age during a time of rapid technological change. For Durkheim, it was the advent of factory labor. For us, it's this bullshit. It's pop sockets. They're vexing. So since we're living through another technological revolution on the scale of the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s, we can apply Durkheim's logic to what we're looking at today. We have an incredible outpouring of vocal voices happening from standpoints that are entirely diametrically opposed. Now, before we launch into this next part, I want to be clear that this is me applying Durkheim's theory to current events in my own terms. It's based off my interpretation, my assessment, and my opinion on current events. It's very subjective, it's purely analysis. Please don't think that I'm out here trying to present this as fact. You're free to disagree or agree as much as you'd like, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Just please be nice to me. The digital revolution has changed everything again. It's changed the economy drastically, and once again you're seeing workers forced to adapt to this change and develop new skills on the fly, and their work brings them in close proximity to people who are from different places and don't share all the same traits as them. It's also changed how people receive vital information. Nowadays people get their information from different sources, right? Some people use social media, some use traditional news outlets, and some use outlets that appear to be news but actually are not. And varying levels of media literacy make it hard for people to determine what is fact and what is fiction. We don't have much agreement between sides on the basic facts of any given story. But we don't just have different perspectives on what the facts are, we have different perspectives on things like justice and human decency, things that are fundamental to the human experience. So when you look at things like the Black Lives Matter protests, one wing thinks that the ongoing racial injustice of the Western world needs to be stopped and is tired of being ignored, so now police stations are burning and statues of slavers are being thrown into the sea in protest. Disruption is happening because it's a better alternative than unjust order. And you have another wing who thinks that's bad because you're breaking the law and destroying things that used to symbolize the cultural core of your society. So this is where we have the traditionalists and the modernists, like I was talking about before. So you have one side that says, you can't dismantle that statue, you can't change the name of that football team, these are sacred symbols, and this is the way things have always been. And then you have another side that doesn't value those same traditions, symbols, and beliefs at all. They value things like diversity and egalitarianism over homogeneity. So when you have illegal actions taken in protest, you have one side who sees it as a tradition being violated and a law being broken for which retributive justice should be brought about. And the other side sees it as an unjust law that deserves to be broken. And since the law doesn't serve to protect certain communities and state-sanctioned violence is being brought in to silence them, they have less and less regard for tradition traditional means of legitimacy. Some people still live in the mechanical society. They want their social cohesion to come from the fact that their neighbors resemble them in ethnicity and values. They want to keep valuing symbols like flags and statues. They want their neighbors to share the same symbols and beliefs that they do. And they don't want the country they know to change from its traditional roots. And some live in the organic society. They want the people around them to be happy and to take care of each other, whether or not they share those same traits. And they probably don't care about statues of slavers, and they want to see them gone. And yet some others see the entire system around them as dysfunctional and want the entire thing restructured so it doesn't resemble the one we've been living in at all, since clearly the one that we've been celebrating for the last few hundred years doesn't actually work all that well. It works for some people, conveniently the people in power who get to make all the rules, but for others it's been a disaster literally the whole time, including the quote-unquote good old days. And when you're raised to believe one thing, like that we respect certain historical leaders for establishing the society that we live in, and then people that you respect tell you another thing, like that those same people actually committed genocide and that you personally benefited from it, it's easy to feel lost at sea culturally. If we don't have these shared points of reference that we collectively assign value to, then what is the new standard? That's something that everyone is going to have to decide for themselves with the resources that they have available to them. Overall, things are changing faster than we can keep up with now. They didn't always change at this pace. Take the Bronze Age, for example. The Bronze Age went like this. Hey society. Oh hey technology. So quick update, I just found out you can smelt copper and then alloy it with tin. Holy fuck. Okay, this changes everything. I know, like finally, no more working with stone. I'm gonna need like a quick 2,000 years just to process this. Yeah, take your time. And over those 2,000 years, one person's life wasn't that different from their parents, technologically speaking. But then since the Industrial Revolution, it's been more like, another update for you, we've just invented electric light. No way. No fire at all, huh? Nope, no fire at all. It just goes right in your house. So that way I can read at night. That's the idea. Huh. Well, I'll be damned. Oh, I have something else too. Oh, two things. So this is a telephone, and with this, you can talk to someone in Paris while you are in Brantford. Paris, France. Paris, Ontario, yes. Okay, well, this is still a lot to process. Thank you so much for coming over. Say, could I just like have 100 years or so before you... Oh, also, here's an automobile. What is that? Well, you get in it, and then you can just drive around to like other cities and shit. Get out of town. We can, using the automobile. We're gonna have to like change the way we design cities and stuff now. I'm just gonna need like a second to invent suburbs if you don't mind. Absolutely. So also, oh, there's still another thing. This is a radio. A radio. Yeah, so it plays music, but then also if you turn that little dial on the side there, it plays middle-aged men making fart sounds. Why would I want that? I don't know. Say, while I have you... No, okay? Stop. Just stop. This has already been too many things. I need to adjust. While I have you, this is called a personal computer. You use it mostly for porn. What is that? Oh, this is it's a picture of a personal computer. I was just explaining that it's a machine for pornography. No. The luminescent, moving photograph of the personal computer. What am I looking at? Oh, so this is a smartphone. It's really good for reading the news and also becoming murderously angry at total strangers. What in the fuck? And also porn. Can you fuck off? No. Alright, well, I don't want any of this stuff. Sorry. Okay, well, fine. I'm just gonna not use it then. Well, you can't do that. Why not? Well, because everyone else is using it, and if you just pretend it's not there, you kind of just look dumb. Okay, who is everyone else? I'm society. People talk. Anyway, this is a fidget spinner. Enough! Stop! Take it easy. You're doing that thing where you get a little squirrely. No one likes that. I can't just stop. That's not how it works. Just shut everything down, please. You want me to just shut everything down? Shut it. Just shut it all down. That's really what you want. Yes, please, okay? More than anything, I want some time to just sit at home and just think about all of this stuff.
And that's how we got COVID.
And with that, I'm gonna end this video. Folks, I hope you liked this video, and I thank you so much for being a part of it. Like I said, let me know what you thought about it in the comments, and let me know if there's any other topics you want to see me cover in a future video. I'm currently planning on doing a video on Karl Marx and McCarthyism and the Red Scare. I want to do another one on Durkheim and his theories on suicide, one about Sigmund Freud and how much I hate that fucker. It would also really help me out if you like this video and share it with other people that you think might dig it. And if you want to, you can also go follow me on my social medias. My Twitter and Instagram are linked in the description, so do that if you feel like it. All right, be good everyone, and I hope you're doing well. You're the best, and I think you're the best. Take care of yourself.